Before you select the thesis option in the Masters of Education program, you should consider these 10 questions. They're similar questions to those you would consider if you're doing a project option, but the stakes are much higher. And so let's talk about uh, question 1. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? This is a 100 to 120 page project. Your reference list would probably be somewhere between 60 to 100 references. Uh, it's a very involved project. There's a system to doing it, but it's probably unlike anything you've completed before, and it's very, very dissimilar to an essay, even a large essay. This is a big task, and you're collecting data. It goes over 4 terms, so it's over a year long. It doesn't have to be, but most people take that time to do it. And you need to be tenacious and driven to get this kind of thing done. And so that's related to question 2. Are you passionate about the topic? You need to be passionate about the topic. That's important. If you're not, it will be very hard to complete a thesis. So you need to be really interested in what you're looking at. The third question, oddly enough, is one that many people don't consider, is do you have access to the participants that you want to study? If you're not a teacher, for example, and you want to get students to participate in a project, that can be really difficult to do. And you have to get the approval of the Board of Education that you're at, and you have to get approval from UOIT, the Research Ethics approval, and they have to be a sufficient number of participants. That's a big holdup for some people, and you need to consider that ahead of time and say, oh, do I have access to these students or teachers or whoever you want to study? Fourth thing you should consider is, are you an internally driven independent learner? That means you don't need a teacher to tell you what to do. You know what to do. You know how to drive your instinctively, you know how to drive your own learning, and you know how to proceed further, and you don't need someone cracking the whip. You would have a supervisor, and you can meet them once a week or 2 weeks, twice every month, or whatever. You can figure out whatever schedule, but typically it's driven by you. And that's related to point 5. Same thing with a project. Are you a procrastinator? If you are, a thesis option is probably not for you. And that's a big point. You cannot do a thesis at the last minute. And if you're a procrastinator, you'll just get yourself into trouble because the scope of this project is huge. You need to be the kind of person that understands big projects and are able to address those projects, which is related to question 6 here. Am I well organized? You need to be really well organized for this kind of thing. Uh, if you're a super well organized person, a thesis you would that's not going to write your thesis for you, but it's going to go a long way to helping you complete that thesis. On the other hand, if you're someone who's not well organized, you're going to have difficulty. You need to be well organized because this is a big project. Are you task focused? Do you get things done? And that's related to procrastination as well. If you're someone who doesn't get things done, or you kind of do them at the last minute, or you avoid them, thesis is not an option. It's not a good option for you. Are you someone who's good at completing big projects? Have you ever done a big project? It doesn't have to be a thesis, but the kind of person that is a leader in that project and understands that this has to be done and this has to be done, and you know how to attack a big project, that will go well for you. Now, your supervisor can help you with that as well. You don't have to come with all these skills, but it would really help. Can you write very well? That's important. If you struggle with writing, if you find it really difficult, a thesis option may not be a uh, good way to go because it's 100 to 120 pages of writing, and it's academic writing, so you have to learn that. And that can be challenging. If you feel queasy about writing or you find it hard to write, that can be a big problem for doing a thesis because ultimately you do have to write. And number 10, do you have the time? Are you too busy? Take a good look at your schedule. Uh, you might probably work full time or part time if you have family. If there's a lot of demands on your time, a thesis option may not be realistic. You have to devote probably somewhere between 10 to 15, no, well, probably 15 to 20 hours realistically each week into this kind of massive project. And so you have to think about it. It's worth 4 courses. I think it's more, takes more time than 4 courses in some ways. However, you determine the pace. So yes, you might not do 20 hours every week, but you really have to have concentrated periods of time that you can address the thesis, particularly when you're trying to do the literature review part, which involves reading very stagnant, often very stagnant educational articles, and you need to be sort of driven to get through those articles and figure out how to do that. So those are the questions, some questions you should consider when thinking about the thesis option in the Masters of Education program at UOIT.